I was halfway to the photo line, still holding Talia's hand and a plate of untouched ribs, when my son turned and said, "Mom, no, stay out of the photos." Just like that. Loud enough for everyone to hear, sharp enough to silence the picnic chatter. After years of birthday cakes, scraped knees, rent payments, and forgiveness, I never got back. I was too much for the family portrait, so I stepped back. And later, when the camera was off and the park had emptied, I did what I should have done years ago. I cropped him out instead. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. It was supposed to be one of those perfect Saturdays, grills fired up, potato salad sweating in plastic bowls, folding chairs creaking under ants and sundresses. The city park was loud with laughter, kids trailing juice boxes, uncles talking about football like it was sacred scripture. And at the center of it all, Maya's son Ryan stood, orchestrating the annual family photo like he was directing a film about himself. Elaine stood off to the side with a paper plate in one hand, her daughter Talia's tiny fingers laced into hers. Barbecue sauce glistened on her untouched ribs. The corn hadn't even been buttered. She hadn't made it halfway to the folding table before the camera was out and people were shouting for positions. "Okay, let's go. Tall ones in the back, kids in front," Ryan called, waving his arms like a coach. Elaine smiled faintly, tugging Talia along toward the group. It was automatic, she always tried. Always. But then Ryan saw her. "Mom, no, stay out of the photos," he said, loud enough that conversations around them stopped. "We've got enough people." His words cracked the air like a dropped plate. Talia froze. Elaine's smile collapsed, just slightly, enough for anyone paying attention. But no one was, not even Maya, standing a few feet away, arms crossed, watching without stepping in. The photographer, a young woman with a ponytail and nervous eyes, hesitated mid-adjustment of her lens. "Should I?" "It's fine," Elaine said quickly. Her voice didn't shake. That came later. She gave Talia's hand the gentlest squeeze and backed away. No drama, no begging to be let in. Just that soft, practiced exit. Something she'd mastered over the years. She found an empty bench a little ways off, shaded by an oak whose leaves were already beginning to rust at the tips. The uneaten plate sat beside her, flies circling. From there, she watched the camera flash again and again as everyone smiled and shouted names and made memories she wasn't allowed inside. She stayed until the photo was done, until the group scattered back into casual laughter like nothing had happened. Then she stood, picked up the untouched plate, and quietly tossed it in the nearest trash can. No one noticed. No one stopped her, except Talia, still watching her from across the grass, small hands twisted in the hem of her dress. Elaine gave her a soft, almost imperceptible nod. Then she left, without saying goodbye. As she reached the parking lot, a hand grabbed her elbow. She turned, startled. It was Maya. "You're not going to make a scene?" her sister asked, voice low, unreadable. Elaine looked at her a long moment, then said, "Not today." But the way she said it made Maya blink, because something had shifted. Not anger, not sorrow, something colder, something patient. And from that moment, something began. The next morning, the sun came in sharp through the living room blinds, slicing across the carpet like it was trying to cut the silence. Elaine sat barefoot on the couch in an old sweatshirt, knees tucked under her. The house was still. Even the birds outside seemed muted, as if they knew. Her laptop sat open on the coffee table, connected to a worn-out lacy external drive covered in fading stickers. Remnants of road trips, school events, science fairs. Years of moments, whole lives. The loading bar blinked once before the folders populated the screen. 2008, Ryan birthday, 2011 Talia first steps, Thanksgiving 2016 family picnic 2020. It took her 3 seconds to open the first one, 5 to begin dragging thumbnails into a new folder she'd labeled, simply archived. She didn't do it quickly, she hovered, examined. One photo showed Ryan at age 12, arms slung cockily around 2 cousins, grinning through braces. Elaine stood 3 people away in the background, face blurry and half-turned. Gone. Click, Drag, archived. Another, a Christmas morning tableau. Maya and Ryan laughing near the tree, Elaine handing someone a mug off to the side, mid-blink. A ghost in her own life, deleted. She paused at one from a school play, Talia front and center in a felt bumblebee costume, cheeks flushed. Elaine smiled and saved it to a separate folder marked Talia. That one stayed. She kept working. The action wasn't vengeful. Not quite. It felt administrative, like sorting receipts after a tax year that had cost more than it brought in. She filtered with calm detachment, though every now and then her hand tightened slightly around the trackpad. Midway through Family Picnic 2019, she heard the front door open. Fran's voice drifted in before she did. "I brought your favorite, those little lemon tea cookies from the farmer's market." Elaine minimized the screen but didn't close it. She leaned back, laptop still humming in front of her like an exposed nerve. Fran walked in wearing joggers and a windbreaker, hair in a ponytail, a paper bag in hand. She clocked the silence immediately. Her smile faltered. "What's going on?" she asked. Elaine looked at her for a moment, said nothing. Fran set the bag on the counter and walked over. Her eyes dropped to the laptop. "Old pictures?" Elaine inhaled like she might deflect, but exhaled something closer to the truth. "He asked me to stay out of the photo yesterday." Her voice was even, matter of fact. "I'm just making that easier now." Fran blinked, then slowly sat down beside her. The couch sank a little. "That boy didn't just crop you out of a picture," Fran said after a long pause. "He told you where you stand." Elaine didn't respond. Her cursor hovered over a photo, Ryan's college graduation. She was in it, off to the far right, blurred by motion, cropped by someone else's bad camera framing. Talia had been 5 then. She remembered standing through the ceremony in heels that made her feet swell, just to smile through photos taken by Maya. She hit delete. "I'm not angry," Elaine said quietly. "I know. But I am done." Fran nodded, her mouth set in a line. Outside, a car backfired in the distance, sharp, jarring. Neither of them flinched. Then Fran said something without looking at her. "You ever think about how much damage you can do to someone without ever raising your voice?" Elaine tilted her head. Fran continued. "You've always been the one to forgive, the one to make peace, but you teach people how to treat you, and now they think you're optional." Elaine stared at the screen, at the empty space left behind. Then she clicked on a folder labeled Ryan, Maya, Birthdays, selected all and dragged them without blinking, archived. Her hand didn't even hesitate this time. Outside, wind pressed softly against the windows. Inside, something else began to stir, like the low roll of a storm still miles out, but inevitable. Elaine sat at the dining room table with a mug of chamomile gone cold. The house was still again, quieter now than silence should be. Talia was with her dad this weekend. Fran had gone home hours ago. It was just her. The hollow sound of the clock ticking above the microwave, and a thick blue folder pulled from the back of a desk drawer she hadn't opened in years. Estate plan, Elaine Ramsey. It was dated 2018. She'd signed it back when Ryan was still in grad school, when she thought distance and age would eventually soften him, when she still believed he might come back around. She flipped past the boilerplate, witness attestations, medical proxies, power of attorney. Then she got to the section that mattered. Beneficiary, Ryan James Ramsey, 100% of assets and estate, contingent upon survivorship. Her eyes didn't flinch, no sigh, no theatrics. Just a sharp intake of breath through her nose, controlled and clean, and then she picked up a red pen from the drawer beside her and drew a slow, perfect circle around Ryan's name. A second later, she crossed through it. Once, decisively. She closed the folder and slipped it into a manila one she'd labeled in neat block letters. Revisions, July 2025. The moment didn't feel angry. It felt overdue. She reached for her phone, scrolled through contacts until she found Tom Delgado, family attorney. His name had dust on it, metaphorically speaking. But he had been kind when she'd updated her will after her divorce, and Elaine remembered how he'd looked her in the eye, not past her, even when she cried in his office about things that weren't legal matters. She pressed call, got the voicemail, waited for the beep. "Hi, Tom, it's Elaine Ramsey. I need to make a few changes to my estate documents. Call me when you have a minute. Sooner the better." She hung up. Still seated at the table, she slid open the side drawer where she kept old notebooks, school supplies, stamps no one used anymore. She pulled out a spiral-bound one with a soft, worn cover and a sticker on the front that had mostly peeled off. On the first blank page she wrote in her small, meticulous hand, "What he doesn't deserve." She paused, tapped the pen once against her chin, and then began writing. "The year I worked double shifts so he wouldn't have to take out student loans. The time I sat in an ER hallway for 6 hours while he got stitches from a party fight he lied about. Every birthday cake. Everyone. Homemade, even when I had a migraine. Forgiving him for siding with Maya in that custody hearing. Letting him speak to me like I was a stranger in my own home. The list didn't pour out, it bled, line by line. 3 pages later, she sat back and blinked at her own handwriting. Not messy, not angry, deliberate. She flipped to the inside back cover and wrote one more thing, the ink pressing hard into the paper. "You inherit the weight of what you carry, not what you've taken." She closed the notebook. A gust of wind scraped dry leaves against the window outside. Then a sudden hush, like the world had stopped breathing. Elaine stood, carried the blue folder and the spiral notebook to her bedroom, and tucked them into the lockbox she kept at the back of her closet. Then she sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the carpet. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. Across the room, her phone lit up. A voicemail transcription scrolled across the screen. "Hi Elaine, it's Tom. I'm available Monday afternoon. Let's get this sorted out. Sounds like it's time." She read the message once, locked the screen, and whispered, "Yes, it is." Then she reached for her laptop. A new document opened with a blank cursor blinking. At the top she typed, "Contingency list for Talia." Then, "Do not tell Ryan anything. Not yet." Elaine heard the knock just after 10. Light, hesitant. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and moved toward the door, expecting Fran, maybe back for her tea cookies. But when she opened it, Talia stood on the porch, holding something wrapped in crinkled tissue paper and pressed tight to her chest. She wore a faded hoodie, her hair in a messy bun, face scrubbed bare of makeup. A softness hung around her shoulders, something bruised but unbowed. "Hey," she said quietly. "Can I come in for a minute?" Elaine stepped aside without a word. The door clicked shut behind her. Talia stood in the kitchen for a beat like she hadn't been there in months, even though it had only been a few days. Then she carefully unwrapped the bundle and held out a small black frame. Inside was a photo, blurry, a little overexposed. It showed Elaine kneeling on the grass, arms around a much younger Talia, both laughing, both a little out of focus, but unmistakably happy. "I found this in the garage," Talia said. "He told me to toss the box, said they were old junk." Elaine looked at the photo, then at her granddaughter. "He does this," Talia added, "to people he thinks are easy targets." The sentence didn't land like accusation. It felt more like a shared diagnosis. Elaine took the frame, ran her fingers lightly over the glass. Her voice was steady when she said, "Not anymore." Talia nodded. They didn't talk much after that. Elaine gestured toward the kitchen counter, where a bowl of batter and a muffin tin sat half-finished. Without asking, Talia slid off her jacket, washed her hands, and picked up the whisk. They worked in silence, measured, stirred, poured. The house filled with the smell of cinnamon and nutmeg, the kind that clung to memory more than fabric. Elaine didn't need to say it out loud, but she could feel it. How this was less about muffins and more about building something back from the fracture line. When the tray went into the oven, she reached into the drawer by the sink and pulled out a single brass key on a plain ring. She held it out. "For emergencies," she said. "Just yours." Talia took it, fingers curling tight. She looked down at it, then back up. "I'm still your family," she said. Elaine didn't blink. "I know." And somehow, those 2 words patched a seam that had been splitting open for years. They sat at the kitchen table again, this time with warm muffins in hand and butter melting into the ridges. No small talk, no forced apologies, just the mutual understanding of 2 women who had both been told to make themselves smaller, one now refusing to shrink, the other refusing to vanish. After a while, Talia pulled out her phone and tapped through her camera roll. You want me to take a new one? She asked softly. Of us? Elaine hesitated, then nodded. Talia leaned in, shoulder brushing hers, and raised the phone. The photo snapped with a soft click. This time, no one tried to crop her out. And later, when Talia had left, and the house settled back into its hush, Elaine opened her phone and looked at the photo again. They weren't perfectly posed. The lighting was uneven, but they looked whole. Then her screen lit with a new message. Ryan. Just heard you've been going through old files. You're not seriously making this a thing, right? We both know how emotional you get. Elaine stared at the text. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She didn't reply. She opened the notebook instead. Under her last entry, she added, gaslighting, disguised as concern. Again. The voicemail came in just after sunrise. Elaine saw the notification blink across her screen while the coffee machine sputtered behind her, filling the kitchen with the bitter scent of dark roast. The screen showed his name, Ryan, and the first line of transcription. Mom, I think you're overreacting. She didn't hit play. Instead, she swiped left, pressed delete, and watched it disappear from her phone like it had never existed. The relief was instantaneous and startlingly physical, like unclenching a fist she hadn't realized she'd been holding for 20 years. She poured herself a mug, took one slow sip, and let the quiet settle. By 9, she was pulling into a narrow downtown parking lot beside a law office she hadn't visited since before the pandemic. The brick building was old but freshly painted, its glass doors stenciled with Thomas Delgado, ESQ. Estate and Trust Law. Tom's receptionist, a soft-spoken woman in her 60s, smiled when she saw Elaine. Good morning, Ms. Ramsey. He's expecting you. Tom's office still smelled faintly of leather and printer toner. Diplomas lined the wall in perfect symmetry. Behind the desk, Tom stood and smiled, gray now at the temples, but with that same steady kindness she remembered, the kind that didn't fill silences with noise. Elaine, he said, shaking her hand. It's been too long. Come in. She took a seat, her purse resting beside her chair, that blue revisions, July 2025 folder tucked neatly inside. The sound of the door closing behind her felt final, like a vault ceiling. He glanced at the folder when she set it down on his desk. So, he said gently, you're ready to make some changes? I am. He opened his laptop. Good. Let's take this one step at a time. For the next hour, they worked through numbers, deeds, accounts. He asked questions, typed notes, adjusted language. She answered each one cleanly. Without hesitation, her voice never broke, not even once. Every stroke of his keyboard sounded like something old being erased. When he reached the section marked Beneficiaries, he hesitated, fingers hovering over the keys. Do you want to leave him anything? He asked, careful but direct. Elaine met his gaze. Nothing with my name on it. Tom nodded once, slow, understanding. Then we'll redirect everything through the trust. You mentioned wanting to include your granddaughter. Yes, she said. Symbolically, at least. Talia's still in school, but she's the only one I trust to understand what this means. He typed co-trustee. Talia Ann Ramsey, non-fiduciary, symbolic. Then he glanced up. And you're certain about the charitable clause? Elaine smiled faintly. More certain than I've been about most things. She reached into her bag and slid across a single photograph, the one Talia had brought her. The edges were worn now from being handled too often. I want part of the trust to fund photography scholarships for kids who can't afford cameras or classes, low-income teens, creative ones, the kind that disappear if no one notices them. Tom studied the image for a moment before nodding. That's beautiful, Elaine, really. He printed a draft copy of the document, pages still warm from the machine. As she signed her initials at the bottom of each page, she realized her hands weren't shaking. They hadn't in a while. When she reached the final line, signature of settler, she paused for a breath, then signed with deliberate pressure, ink soaked into paper. Done. Tom leaned back. I'll have the notarized copies ready Monday. Anything else you want to adjust? Elaine closed the folder, tucked it under her arm, and stood. No. The rest will adjust itself. He smiled at that. You always did have a way of knowing when to draw a line. She returned the smile, soft but unwavering. Lines are just boundaries that learn to say no. Outside, the day had shifted from overcast to bright, sunlight ricocheting off car windshields. She slipped on her sunglasses, feeling lighter, almost dangerously so. Before she got into her car, she opened her phone one last time. No new messages. She scrolled to the deleted voicemail folder, stared at Ryan's name for a heartbeat, and hovered over recover. Then she pressed delete permanently. Her reflection in the screen looked back, steadier, sharper, no longer waiting for apology or permission. As she turned the key in the ignition, her purse buzzed once with a new notification. This one wasn't from Ryan, it was from Maya. "We need to talk. It's about Talia." Elaine's hand froze on the steering wheel. The engine idled. Elaine never replied to Maya's message. Not that day, not the next. She left it unread, its little blue dot sitting quietly in her inbox like a dare. Whatever Maya had to say about Talia could wait, or not. Elaine didn't owe her immediacy anymore, not after years of selective silence, back-channel decisions, and passive collusion wrapped up in polite tones. Some conversations deserved to die unread. Instead, she parked in front of Vinyl and Grind, a cafe wedged between a closed-down bookstore and a nail salon that smelled permanently like acetone. Fran was already inside at a corner booth, stirring sugar into her coffee with the same distracted rhythm she'd had since college. She looked up as Elaine walked in, eyes sharp with readiness. No questions, just space cleared. Elaine slid into the seat and wrapped both hands around the ceramic mug waiting for her. Fran always ordered for her. Black with a splash of oat milk, no sugar. It hadn't changed in years. "I rewrote the will," Elaine said quietly, without build-up. Fran blinked once. "How'd it feel?" "Final," she paused. Then, more carefully, "Free." Fran nodded slowly, then sat back, as if letting the weight of it settle between them. She didn't push, didn't prod, just waited. So Elaine told her about the photos, the archive, the trust, the message she deleted without listening to the end, the scholarship fund, the key she gave Talia, the moment in Tom Delgado's office when she realized she wasn't protecting Ryan anymore. She was reclaiming herself. Fran didn't interrupt once. When Elaine finished, there was a long, thoughtful silence. Then Fran said, "You know, I've been trying to find the right way to say this for a long time." Elaine met her eyes. "He didn't slip up, Elaine. He didn't have a bad moment or say something he didn't mean. That boy showed you exactly how he sees you, the lens he's always used." Elaine looked down at her coffee, its surface gone lukewarm and still. "A disposable subject. Someone he can crop out." Fran nodded. "You weren't blurry in those pictures by accident." Elaine didn't cry. She just blinked slowly, as if clearing dust from her sightline. After brunch, she stopped by a small photo kiosk near the library, the kind with a self-serve scanner and rows of matte paper behind the counter. She plugged in her drive, selected her favorites. Her and Talia at the lake. Fran and her at a Halloween party. Photos from her book club. Her co-workers at the garden store she worked at after the divorce. None of them perfect, but all of them warm. People who had seen her, stayed. She printed them on thick 5x7s, the kind that felt good in your hands, substantial, unfakeable. The next stop was Shutter and Grain, a boutique photo shop on the east side run by a man named Dev Patel, who always wore a newsboy cap and spoke with the calm cadence of someone who spent his life cropping chaos into meaning. She laid the photos across the counter like cards. "I want to make something," she said. "Not for Instagram, not for a gallery, just for me. Something real, a single frame, big." Dev studied the images carefully. Then he smiled, slow and genuine. "What are we calling it?" Elaine thought for a moment, then said, "People Who Chose Me." Dev looked up. "Best kind of family portrait." He tapped his keyboard and pulled out a layout pad. "Give me a week," Elaine nodded. "Take 2, I'm not in a rush." As she walked out, the light shifted across the pavement, painting. The sidewalk in patches of gold and shadow. For once, she didn't check her phone, didn't wonder if anyone needed her, because the people who mattered already had a key. By Monday morning, the sunlight felt clinical, sharp and exact, cutting through the kitchen blinds like a scalpel. Elaine sat at the counter, coffee cooling beside a neatly stacked pile of paperwork. Envelopes, forms, a blue ink pen lined up perfectly parallel to the table's edge. Everything ready, she picked up her phone, scrolled through contacts, and pressed Dr. Carrington, primary care. A nurse answered, chipper and efficient. Dr. Carrington's office, this is Lisa. Hi Lisa, it's Elaine Ramsey. I need to update my healthcare proxy. Of course, Ms. Ramsey. Would you like us to email the forms or… I already have them. Elaine's voice was calm, almost serene. I just need the office address to drop off notarized copies. Sure thing. The nurse rattled off the address. Elaine wrote it down on a post-it, small, square, yellow, then stuck it beside her laptop where the corner wouldn't curl. Clean, controlled. She ended the call, pulled the top sheet from her folder, and read it line by line. Each name she had once listed, each phone number, signature, witness line, was a record of trust given and trust broken. Her pen hovered only a moment before she drew one clean line through Ryan James Ramsey. Gone. In the blank space below, she printed two names in block letters. Primary, Frances Fran Monroe. Secondary, Talia Ann Ramsey. The pen didn't waver. She signed, dated, sealed. Then, with the precision of someone tightening bolts on the final bridge she'd ever cross, Elaine opened her laptop and typed a letter. Its title was simple, but the weight of it pressed through the page. My care, my choice. If I cannot speak for myself, these are the voices I trust to protect my dignity, not the loudest ones. Not the ones who talk about love and mean control. The ones who have shown up, who have stayed. No extraordinary measures, no guilt-driven rescues. I've lived my life trying to earn peace. I want to leave it that way. She printed 2 copies, signed them both, and slipped one into a cream envelope addressed to Tom Delgado's office, the other into a padded mailer labeled Dr. Carrington, confidential. She sealed each with her thumb pressed flat against the glue, like stamping intention. By noon, both envelopes were mailed. When she returned home, she pulled open the drawer beneath the printer, the one stuffed with old folders and emergency contact lists, and removed the file labeled Health Directives 2018. Inside were Ryan's signatures, a power of attorney he'd never once used responsibly, and a sticky note he'd written in his familiar slanted scrawl. Don't worry, Mom, I've got you. She stared at it for a long time. Then she fed every page through the shredder. The machine hummed, steady and methodical, chewing through the paper until all that remained was a curled nest of thin white ribbons. She gathered them into a paper bag, tied it off, and carried it to the garage bin. When she came back inside, the house felt quieter, but it wasn't empty quiet. It was owned quiet, the kind that hummed with her. A text arrived as she was rinsing her coffee mug. Fran, Tom called. Said the documents came through. You're officially updated. Elaine smiled at her reflection in the kitchen window, the faintest curve of pride lifting her lips. She typed back. Good. One more thing checked off. Fran's reply came instantly. Fran, this is your full edit moment, babe. You're rewriting the whole story. Elaine typed 3 words and stopped. Deleted them. Tried again. Not rewriting, reframing. She set the phone down, picked up her camera from the counter, and adjusted the lens. An old Canon she hadn't used in years. The viewfinder caught her reflection, fragmented and focused. Behind her, the new photos she'd printed were laid out to dry on the table. Her phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail notification. Unknown number. She froze, for just a second. Then slowly she pressed play. Static. Then a man's voice. Ms. Ramsey. This is Officer Dunham from Brookridge. I think you should call us back. It's about your son. Her hand tightened on the camera. Elaine didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, not exactly. She lay in bed, wide awake. The faint orange glow from the street lamp outside painting shifting grids on the ceiling. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, speaker off. But the officer's words replayed with needle-point precision. It's about your son. She hadn't called back. Not yet. Because instincts honed by decades of emotional landmines told her, before you open any door, lock the others. By sunrise, she was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, earbuds in, bank account tab loaded. She pulled up her health insurance login next. then her credit union, then her private HSA account. One by one, line by line, nothing had been breached. Yet, she clicked the secure chat icon for her health provider and typed in her verification code. A minute later, a rep named Cheryl R. responded with cheerful urgency. Elaine Ramsey, I need to freeze all third-party access. Immediately. Cheryl R. Certainly, Ms. Ramsey. One moment. Cheryl R. Just confirming, we did flag a failed login attempt to your health dashboard from an unverified device last night. Location, Brookridge. Elaine's breath didn't catch. It held, Elaine Ramsey. Was any information accessed? Cheryl R. No, the attempt was blocked by two-factor. But I strongly recommend resetting all passwords. Already ahead of you, Elaine muttered under her breath. She ended the chat, opened her password vault, and began one by one resetting every key account. Banking, credit, utilities, even her cloud storage, where the photos lived. Each new password, longer than the last, randomized and locked behind double verification. She kept a pen beside her, jotting each new credential on a sheet she would later burn. Once she was done, she closed her laptop and stared out the window. The hydrangeas were starting to brown at the edges. Summer was beginning to let go. By noon, she was sitting across from Tom Delgado again. He wore the same dark jacket as before, his coffee steaming beside a neatly stacked legal pad. Elaine slid a printout across the desk, a checklist with highlighter marks and timestamps. All access points are sealed. No one but me, Fran, and Talia can see or touch anything connected to my life. Tom nodded as he scanned the list. You're covering angles most people don't think about until it's too late. Elaine folded her hands in her lap. I don't plan to be most people. Tom sat back. You know what's ironic? He's still looking for the door you already closed. Elaine tilted her head slightly. Let him knock. She paused, voice flat, clear, final. No one's home. Tom smiled. Not pity, not pride. Respect. I'll update the red file today. If he tries anything else, there's a paper trail a mile long now. Elaine nodded. Good. She stood, zipped up her coat, and turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Tom, she asked without looking back. Yeah? If that officer calls again, don't forward him to me. Tell him to call my lawyer. Tom raised an eyebrow. Understood. The air outside was brisk, the sun dull behind a layer of thin clouds. Elaine walked with her hands in her coat pockets, head high, pace even. Nothing chased her anymore. When she got home, she deleted every account she no longer needed. Shopping apps, old subscriptions, social media profiles that hadn't seen activity in years, even her public-facing genealogy log. Just one more data point Ryan didn't need. By the time the sun dipped behind the trees, her digital life had shrunk to what mattered, what she chose, nothing else. She stepped into the hallway closet, retrieved a small fireproof box, and placed inside it a printed list labeled Assets Ryan Cannot Access and Never Will Again. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't answer. A voicemail icon appeared. Her hand hovered, then tapped. Ms. Ramsey, this is Officer Dunham again. I understand if you're hesitant, but I think you'd want to know Ryan's been making claims about you. Financial concerns, access issues. We need your side. Her side. That phrase echoed longer than it should have. Elaine walked to her notebook and flipped to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote, False claims, misused access, begin documentation. Then underneath that, in capital letters, do not defend, only record. The gallery smelled like fresh paint and pinewood frames. Elaine stepped into the white-walled space just after 7. The collar of her coat turned slightly against the fall wind that had chased her from the car. Inside, soft jazz played under the low hum of voices and clinking glasses. It was opening night for Chosen Family, a community photography exhibit hosted by Dev's studio, Shutter and Grain, now transformed for one weekend into something that pulsed with memory and resilience. People milled between the prints, drinks in hand, murmuring as they studied faces, moments, caught light. Elaine walked slowly past black and white portraits, candid shots of couples and friends, foster siblings, neighbors, co-workers turned lifelines. Some photos were perfectly composed. Others were raw. All of them radiated choice, affection made deliberate. Then she saw hers, mounted dead center on the longest wall, the quiet centerpiece. A sprawling collage of photos she had curated and Dev had meticulously arranged. Talia on a swing at age 7, Fran laughing mid-bite over a picnic, the Halloween party, the book club circle, her coworkers holding up muddy gloves and terracotta pots. In the middle, a candid of Elaine herself, wind in her hair, smile tilted, looking off to the left, unaware someone had captured her in a moment of unfiltered joy. Beneath it, etched in delicate cursive on the frame's mat, "I kept the ones who kept me." More than one person paused to read it aloud. "Wow," one woman said, near the hors d'oeuvres table. "Did she write that?" "Is that the artist quote?" someone else asked. Elaine didn't step forward. She didn't need to. Talia arrived 15 minutes later, cheeks pink from the cold, hair tucked neatly into a braid. She wore a deep green sweater that matched the streaks of ivy in the background of one of the printed shots. When she saw the collage, she froze. Elaine watched her eyes trace the border of the frame, widening slowly. Then the breath caught. "I remember this one," she whispered, touching the corner of a picture where she was making a goofy face at age 9. "I thought you'd deleted it." "You looked like joy," Elaine said simply. "Why would I?" Talia stepped closer, gaze still fixed. "You put this here?" Elaine smiled faintly. "We put it here." Talia didn't speak, but when she looked back, her eyes were shining. Across the room, Dev approached with a carefully wrapped package in brown craft paper and a string bow. "Had a feeling you'd want one for the condo," he said, handing it to Elaine. "Second print, no watermark, signed by you." "I didn't sign anything," she replied, brow raised. Dev grinned. "You did, just not with a pen." Fran showed up just before the lights dimmed for the closing speech. She took one look at the crowd, the collage, the subtle reverence building around it, and gave a single slow nod. "Well, damn," she said under her breath. "So what's next?" Elaine didn't answer right away. She looked around the room, not for Ryan, not for Maya. She didn't expect them, didn't want them. This was the wall they'd never be on, not because they were erased, but because they never showed up to begin with. She turned back to Fran. "Next?" Then the lights shifted slightly, casting her photo collage in a soft amber glow. Elaine exhaled once, steady. "I think I finally start living with the door locked on purpose." Before Fran could respond, Elaine's phone vibrated in her coat pocket. A text from Officer Dunham. "Ms. Ramsey, we need to meet." Ryan filed a formal report. "Claims emotional coercion and undue influence over your finances." Elaine didn't flinch. She took the gallery pen from the sign-in table, flipped over her exhibit card, and scribbled 3 words under her name: "Let him try." The envelope arrived 3 days later. Cream paper, heavy stock, her name written in a handwriting she hadn't seen on anything but reprimands and holiday cards for years. Mrs. Elaine Ramsey. No return address. Just the faint smudged imprint of a post office stamp from Brookridge. She didn't open it right away. She carried it from the mailbox to the kitchen counter, set it next to the bowl of fruit, then circled it for hours like a cat deciding whether to touch the thing that might bite. By late afternoon, the sunlight cut across the countertop, hitting the envelope at an angle that made the seals shimmer faintly with gold ink. Finally, she slid a letter opener beneath the flap. Inside, cream cardstock, formal serif print. Invitation. Please join us for the Brookridge Community Foundation's annual recognition banquet. Honoree, Ryan James Ramsey. Elaine stared at the embossed lettering until the words blurred. There was a line for RSVP, a deadline, and beneath it, a message written in Ryan's rushed pen. "Mom, they're presenting the scholarship you set up. You should be there. We can put this all behind us." The words pressed in like static. She flipped the card over, checked the back, blank. Then she folded it in half, slow and deliberate, and slid it straight into the kitchen trash can between a stack of grocery receipts and an empty coffee pod. She washed her hands afterward. Twice. When the mail carrier passed the next morning, Elaine was already sealing a different envelope, one addressed to Talia Ramsey, Emerson College Photo Club. Inside, she'd tucked the receipt for a brand new DSLR camera she'd ordered to be delivered to the club office. No note, no signature, just the delivery slip. On the payment line, she'd typed the donor name as anonymous in honor of second chances. She pressed send, closed her laptop, and exhaled. Then she opened a new browser tab, typed renew U.S. passport, clicked apply now. Within an hour, she had booked a weekend flight to Santa Fe, a quiet inn with white adobe walls, a view of the desert, and the promise of silence so deep it would echo. Next came the travel camera. She walked into Shutter and Grain again. Dev looked up from behind the counter, surprised and amused. Back so soon? I need something. Smaller, she said. Portable, for distance. He handed her a compact mirrorless model, sleek and silver. Shoots raw, good in low light. Perfect for solitude. I'll take it. At home, she unpacked the box, charged the battery, and labeled the new SD card in her own handwriting. My life, unfiltered. The pen slipped slightly on the R, leaving a small tail. Perfect, imperfect, hers. Later, she tacked a sticky note to the refrigerator door, the same place where Ryan used to leave reminders for her, bills to pay, errands to run, favors disguised as responsibilities. This one was different, gone, capturing something better. Back when I'm done living it. She turned off the lights, stood by the window for a long moment, watching the last light fade across the street. The world outside was quiet, the way film goes silent before the next reel clicks on. Her phone buzzed once, another message from Officer Dunham. She didn't open it. She picked up the camera, ran her thumb along the shutter, and took one photo through the glass, a reflection of her own silhouette framed by dusk. Grainy, imperfect, real. When she looked down at the screen, the preview glowed faintly. IMG, Salzo A11 JPG. The first image of something that finally belonged to her. Then, as the camera hummed softly in her hands, a quiet chime sounded from her computer, an incoming email notification. The subject line glared in bold. Notice of pending investigation, Brookridge PD. Elaine stepped out of the rideshare just past sunset, a reusable bag slung over one shoulder, camera case in the other. The weekend in Santa Fe had left desert dust on her boots, and silence still echoing in her chest. No souvenirs, just a full SD card, and a sunrise she'd cried through without apology. The sky above her home was dusky blue, the porch light already on, a motion sensor she'd forgotten about. As she rounded the side path, her fingers brushed the chipped paint of the back gate, the one she always used when she wanted to enter quietly. Today, it felt like the only honest door. She slipped through it like memory. The backyard smelled of damp leaves and rosemary. She let herself in through the kitchen, dropped her keys in the bowl, and turned on one small lamp near the window. Nothing else. The silence wrapped itself around her shoulders like a wool coat. Familiar, unburdened. 15 minutes later, the knock came. Firm, measured. Too polite to be aggressive, too rehearsed to be casual. She didn't startle. She didn't lean toward the door. She stayed in the kitchen, fingertips resting against the counter, eyes trained instead on the narrow window just beside the fridge. The one angled enough to catch a clean, partial view of the front porch. Ryan stood there, no tie, a button-down shirt wrinkled at the collar, one hand in his coat pocket, the other held slightly aloft like he hadn't decided what he wanted to do with it. His jaw worked something invisible. He knocked again. Elaine didn't move. The lamp hummed behind her. The silence between them was a wall. Outside, Ryan checked his phone, looked up, waited, knocked once more, and then finally stepped back. He stayed on the porch for another full minute, staring, hands clenched. No note, no apology scratched into paper. Just the soft sound of his shoes shifting across the concrete, then retreating down the front steps. Elaine let the silence return before she moved. She opened the fridge, poured a glass of cold water, and sat at the table. 10 minutes passed before her phone buzzed. Fran, you home yet? Elaine typed back. Just walked in. A moment later, the phone rang. Did you see him? Fran asked, skipping pleasantries. Elaine nodded, though no one could see her. He knocked, waited, knocked again. You open it? No. Fran exhaled hard into the receiver. What would you have said if you had? Elaine didn't answer right away. She traced the condensation on the outside of the glass. Then, with perfect stillness, "Nothing," she paused. He said enough. Fran was silent on the other end, but the silence sounded like understanding. Then, "I'm proud of you." "I'm not looking for that." "Doesn't matter, you've earned it anyway." They ended the call softly, like closing a door that didn't need to be slammed. Elaine stood, walked to the front room, and finally opened the curtain just wide enough to confirm what she already knew. The porch was empty. But in the darkness near the flower bed, the sensor light clicked on again, brief, glowing, then gone. She reached for her camera, switched it on, lifted it toward the window, and clicked the shutter. IMG show 059.jpg, a frame of nothing but porch light and quiet. But it was hers. Elaine didn't respond to the online chatter. Not when Maya posted a vague, self-congratulatory update about family triumphs and healing beginnings. Not when Ryan uploaded a filtered headshot with a caption that read, "Humbled to accept the Brookridge honor. Thank you to those who stood beside me when it counted." She saw the comments, likes from extended relatives who hadn't called her since the funeral. One tagged photo. 3 different hashtags. She didn't comment, she didn't correct, she didn't even scroll twice. Instead, she opened the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet and slid out the thick manila envelope Tom had overnighted. She peeled the seal back cleanly and withdrew a stack of crisp estate documents. New will, new power of attorney, trust revisions, healthcare proxy, directives, all notarized and final. She placed them neatly into a fresh blue binder with a black label on the front. Final copy, E. Ramsey. Then she walked to the hallway closet and tucked it on the highest shelf, beside the fireproof lockbox, 1 inch of paper that carried the full weight of her boundaries. She exhaled through her nose, slow. Then returned to the kitchen, powered up her laptop, and opened her cloud storage. One final task still left untouched. Family photos. Archive 1,481 images. She clicked into the folder and scrolled. Decades compressed into rows of thumbnail smiles. The birthday parties where she was behind the camera. The holidays she paid for but was cropped out of. The group shots she now understood as stage plays in costume. She began deleting. Not hastily, not in rage. She paused to glance at some before letting them go. Photos where Ryan wore his mask best, where Maya's arm looked maternal across his shoulders, where Elaine herself looked like she might still be trying to earn her spot. Delete, delete, delete. When she reached a subfolder labeled 2016 Custody Hearing. Lunch? She didn't open it at all. Gone. But then she opened another folder, one labeled Phone Backups Talia. Inside were pictures Talia had taken over the years, of Elaine asleep in a lawn chair, laughing with Fran at a diner booth, sticking, her tongue out in front of a butterfly mural. Elaine copied them into a new folder. She renamed it in all caps, Mine Only 34 Photos. But they pulsed with something the rest never had. She backed them up onto a private external drive, encrypted and labeled with one line in permanent marker. My life, my proof. Her phone rang mid-afternoon. Elaine, Dev said, voice warm. Hope you're not sick of me yet. Not a chance. I'm launching a new community project. Outdoor exhibit. Theme is seen and chosen. I want you in it. She smiled, letting herself feel the invitation land. You want me to submit photos? I want you to be one of them. There was a pause, long enough for the meaning to bloom. You want to shoot me? I want to shoot with you, he clarified. You've got the best eye in the whole city right now. Elaine looked down at the camera on her desk, the one that had captured her porch light, her shadow, her reclaiming. I'm in, she said. You okay being visible? He asked gently. She didn't hesitate. I'm no longer temperature-controlled, Dev. Let them adjust to me for once. There was a laugh on the other end, then a promise to email details. She hung up, opened her notebook, and flipped past old entries. The what he doesn't deserve list, the scholarship plans, the security checklist. She landed on a blank page. At the top she wrote, Visibility Plan, for what comes next. Then below it, in ink that didn't shake, I will not explain absence to those who never noticed presence. The doorbell rang. She turned slowly. A delivery envelope lay on the mat. From the Brookridge County Civil Court. The letter from the Brookridge County Civil Court was shorter than Elaine expected. 2 pages, dense with legal phrasing, dates, case numbers, and signatures. Ryan James Ramsey versus Elaine Marie Ramsey, alleging financial concealment, emotional coercion, and undue influence regarding the transfer of estate assets. She read it once, then again, slower, tracing each line like she was grading someone's essay in a class she no longer taught. Her attorney didn't call right away. Tom Delgado didn't need to. By the next morning, his email arrived with the subject line, "Response filed. Do not engage." She opened it. The message was clean, surgical. "Elaine, the petition is meritless, filed under emotional pretext. My office has already responded on your behalf. Client has no further comment. Estate is sealed. Documentation enclosed for your records." Tom attached was the court's acknowledgement receipt. Time-stamped, official, airtight. Elaine downloaded it, printed 1 copy, slipped it into the blue final copy, E. Ramsey binder, and then sat at her desk for a long time, fingers drumming lightly against the edge of the paper. Outside, wind scraped through the dry branches of the oak tree. The sound reminded her faintly of that day in the park, the one with the cookout, the camera, the moment Ryan had told her to stay out of the photo. Full circle. Only this time, she was the one behind the lens. Later that afternoon, she stood by the shredder again, feeding the court envelope through in slow strips until the words vanished. Then, on a small whim she couldn't quite name, she took a plain white photo frame from the hall closet. An old one, unused, still wrapped in cellophane, and slid nothing inside. No picture, no memory, just the absence of one. She packaged it in brown paper, neat and untraceable, and addressed it to Ryan J. Ramsey, C.O. Brookridge Community Foundation, CHA, return of unrequested material. She didn't include a note. When Fran stopped by that evening, she found Elaine sealing the box with clear tape. Her face calm, the corners of her mouth lifted in quiet satisfaction. "What's that?" Fran asked. "Return mail," Elaine said, flattening the tape edge. "Unsolicited." Fran smirked. "That's the most elegant insult I've ever seen." Elaine shook her head. "Not an insult, just closure." She walked it to the mailbox herself and placed it inside and closed the lid with the same gentle finality she'd given every act of release this year. By the next morning, the email confirmation from the courier pinged. "Delivered, signed by R. Ramsey." Fran texted within the hour. "Fran, he'll open it thinking it's proof." Elaine, "It is." Fran, "Poetic." That evening, Elaine called Talia. The sound of laughter filtered through the phone before the words did. "He's going to lose his mind," Talia said. Voice light, warm, unapologetic. "A blank frame? Grandma, that's savage." Elaine laughed softly. "It's literal. It's what he's been building toward for years. A portrait with no one in it." There was silence on the line for a beat. Then Talia said, quieter now, "He doesn't deserve how good you've gotten at this." "It's not about him anymore," Elaine said. "It never really was." She hung up a few minutes later, brewed tea, and stood at the kitchen window as the wind picked up. The oak tree bent but didn't break. Leaves skittered down the sidewalk, catching light from the street lamp like small, restless ghosts. Then her phone vibrated again, this time a new message. Not from Fran. Not from Talia. "Unknown number. Ms. Ramsey. This is Officer Dunham. We've closed the formal complaint. But I think you should know he's not taking it well." Elaine stared at the message, the words glowing faintly on the dark screen. She reached for her camera on the counter, lifted it, and focused through the window. The streetlight flickered once, catching a faint figure across the street near the curb. Too far to be certain, too familiar not to be. She didn't zoom in. She didn't move closer. She just took the picture. IMG uso94.jpg. The aperture clicked, soft but final. The envelope arrived on a Thursday. No legal stamp, no heavy paper, just a plain white rectangle with a child's handwriting on the front. Tight, careful print. Miss Elaine Ramsey, CEO Emerson Photo Club. Elaine opened it at the kitchen counter, hands still damp from rinsing blueberries. Inside, a folded letter on lined notebook paper smudged a little at the crease. She unfolded it, smoothing the paper flat. "Dear Ms. Ramsey, I wanted to thank you for the camera. I've never owned one before. I've always used my phone, and it was cracked. This one makes everything feel like it matters, like I do too. I took a picture of my grandmother's hands yesterday. She cried when she saw it. Sincerely, Renee, age 16. Elaine didn't cry, but something in her chest shifted, warmed, then loosened. She picked up her checkbook that afternoon and wrote another donation to the scholarship fund. Quiet, anonymous again. This time, she included a handwritten line in the memo for the ones learning to see. That weekend, Dev texted her a flyer for a local photo essay contest hosted by a nearby senior center. Theme: resilience and focus. No prizes, just publication and a community showing in the town hall rotunda. Do it, Fran urged. When Elaine sent her a picture of the flyer, Talia chimed in later that night. Please submit the one of the porch light. So she did. She titled the collection Still Here. 3 black and white shots. IMG UAU1 JPG, her silhouette through dusk-stained glass. IMG AU59 JPG, an empty porch lit by motion and memory. IMG AU94 JPG, a shadow across the street caught just before it vanished. She included a single caption. Visibility is not always volume. Sometimes it's presence that stays. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from the committee. She placed it on the same countertop where the scholarship thank you had landed. Second place. She smiled. Not because she lost, but because the winning essay was a photo of a woman and her granddaughter planting tomatoes, dirt under their nails, joy smeared across their cheeks. Real things. Unscripted. Elaine's work was printed in the Sunday paper's lifestyle section the next week. She bought 3 copies from the grocery store near her house and clipped the article like someone saving a headline about someone else. But this time, it was her. Chosen Family. By Elaine Boyer. The editor had asked if she wanted to be listed by her married name. She'd said no. Boyer was hers again, quietly returned to after the divorce. One more thing she'd reclaimed without ceremony. When Dev called that afternoon, his voice was light but reverent. You were stunning in print, by the way, Elaine chuckled. You saw it? Of course I did. I've got it pinned to the corkboard here, between a picture of my mom and a coupon for lens cleaner. High honor, he paused, then added softer. Think you're finally in the right picture now? Elaine looked down at the paper in her lap, her name under her own work, her words in her own voice. She thought about the cookout, the photos she was told not to be part of, the ones she'd been cropped out of, the ones she'd deleted, the ones she chose to keep, and then the ones she'd taken herself. Yes, she said. I think I've been in it the whole time. I just stopped apologizing for being in frame. Dev didn't say anything for a second. Then, well, get ready to step up again. The outdoor exhibit launches next month. You're one of the headliners. They want an artist's statement. Elaine raised an eyebrow. What do I say? Say what's true. She hung up, picked up her pen, and opened her notebook to a new page. At the top she wrote, Artist's Statement, Elaine Boyer. I used to wait to be invited into the photo. Now I take it. She closed the book, set it beside the article, and looked out the window. Across the street, a moving van was parked outside Ryan's apartment. A man stood near the curb, pacing with a phone in his hand. She didn't raise her camera. She didn't need to. The invitation arrived 4 days before Christmas, a digital one this time. No embossed lettering, no personal note. Just a formatted subject line and a stock snowflake graphic. You're invited, Ramsey Family Holiday Gathering. Hosted by Maya. Thursday evening, semi-formal. RSVP requested. Elaine read it in full silence. There was no dear mom, no apology. Just the same script Ryan had always used. Polite on the surface, dismissive in the margins. She didn't click RSVP. She didn't forward it. She didn't even screenshot it. She deleted the email, then emptied her trash folder, just to be sure it never cluttered her memory again. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear, the kind of night where the quiet feels sacred. Elaine spent the afternoon baking with Fran, who insisted on making cookie cameras with a new stencil she'd found online. They looked absurd, wobbly frosting buttons, squinting little lenses. But they made Talia laugh so hard, she snorted hot cocoa through her nose. Talia had brought a few of her friends from Emerson's photography club, most of them staying local for the holidays. Elaine didn't know all their names, but she knew the way they looked at each other, softly, curiously, like they were still amazed the world allowed this kind of belonging. The house was glowing with mismatched string lights and quiet music, warmth rising from the oven and settling into every corner. Someone had brought ginger ale. Someone else brought a battered instant camera and passed it around like a deck of sacred cards. No one mentioned Ryan, not even once. Not in that brittle, quiet way families sometimes do, sidestepping names like furniture in the dark. No. Elaine didn't think about him, didn't wonder if he'd show, didn't check her phone. The silence around him wasn't absence anymore. It was a boundary. Later that night, after most of the group had gone, and only Fran and Talia remained, Elaine set a thick scrapbook on the dining table. The cover read in gold cursive, "Full image." They spent the next hour filling it, slow, joyful, no pressure to explain or curate. There were prints from Dev's exhibit, community shoots, snapshots from the garden store, even a few from that weekend in Santa Fe. Real moments, unposed and unpolished. The final page remained blank. Elaine opened to it and with one steady hand, wrote in block letters, "No one crops me anymore." Then, below that, in pen that did not shake. At the family cookout, my son said, "Stay out of the photos." So I cropped him out of my life and framed the piece he never gave me. She didn't look up to see Talia's reaction, but she heard the small exhale, half laugh, half relief. "Poetic," Fran murmured, tracing the edge of the page. "And final." Elaine nodded. "It doesn't need to be more than that." "No," Talia said, "it really doesn't." They closed the scrapbook together, like sealing a time capsule no one else needed to read. By morning, the world outside was white with new snow. Quiet, soft, undemanding. Elaine stood by the window, mug in hand, camera slung over her shoulder. Across the street, Ryan's old apartment was empty. The moving truck was gone. No car in the driveway. No figure pacing with a phone call. She didn't zoom in. She didn't take the picture. She didn't need to. That frame, that chapter, that ghost, gone. Instead, she turned the camera toward the light pooling in her living room, where Fran was sipping tea and Talia was flipping through the new scrapbook with half a smile on her face. Elaine focused, clicked, IMG, Auto 100 JPG. A portrait of chosen joy. This was the image that would stay. The photo her son never wanted her in? She stopped waiting to be invited. She made her own frame,